Yes, only 3 days left at Keeneland. You know what time it is. It's BloodHorse Monday. Start your week off right. His name is Sean. I'm Louie. Thanks again for joining us here on the BloodHorse Podcast Network. So glad to have you in. Sean, it is wake up with the first number of your alarm clock as a 4 season. How are you, my friend? How you doing? How long have you been awake today? You got to be at least 10 hours today.
Well, not quite there yet. We're getting there. Well, actually, I guess we are doing right about there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I woke up at 4:15 this morning, as I have almost every morning for the last 2 weeks. Got into Churchill Downs at 5:15, and we're getting started early.
It's amazing.
If I fall asleep on you, don't be surprised.
I'm very unoffended. You can imagine when you do show up at the 5:15, and there are already a couple thousand people there. There's nothing more motivating than the backside of a track during a busy time of season.
They do it all year long. I can do it for 1 month.
Yeah.
Yep.
Boom. This part. Yes, exactly. People always, oh, your Derby season. I'm like, I'm good. Like, I'm okay. You know, I can get up early for a little bit. A man who gets up early quite a bit is Hall of Famer. He's the Jockey Mike Smith. So glad to welcome him in here to BloodHorse Monday. Mike, how are you, my friend? And where are you? Look at you, man.
I'm actually in the gym. I found a little quiet room to sneak into so we can talk, guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No. It's definitely our pleasure. Rodriguez, of course, will be Mike's mount next week in the Kentucky Derby. We'll go back to Aqueduct. But before that, of course, one of the things we love to do on this show is celebrate the great horses that we've all gotten to watch. And certainly your 2018 defined by one of them in Justify. Take us back, man. What's it like? Just the first time you got on him, did you know how special it was? And then obviously those 6 races in his career.
Well, yeah, he had already come to the barn with a lot of pretty high expectations, I believe. And then when you watch him break his maiden first time out, the way he did it was extremely impressive. So you knew he was really good and he was fast. You just didn't know, distance, what his limitations were, and he hadn't been around 2 turns. And so when I rode him in that allowance race around 2 turns that day, I was like, wow, I think he's even much better going further. So we knew we had a monster on our hands.
Well, you also, that was your second Kentucky Derby win. You also won with Giacomo back in 2005. Quite a different story there. Big long shot this time, where at Justify you were kind of expected to win. And just take us through the mindset of a jockey in those 2 completely different scenarios. One coming in as the presumed winner and one coming in as nobody talking about him.
Well, the pressure is certainly different. Although I had some high expectations on Giacomo. I actually thought he had a really good chance to pull the race off, to steal it, because of the fact that all the contenders were really, really fast horses. It seemed like I thought it was going to be an extremely fast Derby run early on. And he had been, all his prep races had been out in California where the tracks were so fast back then. He always finished very strong. So I always thought when he got back, to a track that didn't favor speed as much, he wouldn't be without a big chance to really be a, even better horse. And he certainly was. Of course, he needed to run his best race of all time on that day to do it. But man, he picked the right day to do it, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
He really did. Mike, he'll be aboard Rodriguez for the Kentucky Derby. Rendition 151 this year. Mike, I happened to be at the Wood Memorial this year for your mount aboard Rodriguez in that one. But first off, what was it like being at Aqueduct? That weather, all the things. Did it all come rushing back to you?
I've had some wonderful, wonderful memories of riding back there in the winter meets, man. I actually had a good time. I don't mind it when it's that cold like that. It makes you want to ride, to be honest with you. And it was fun just to be back, especially with the Wood Memorial was always, the highlight of the meet. And one of the races you want to win, when you're in New York. And so to go back and was able to not only pull that off. I mean, look, we went in knowing we had a chance. I thought that he would have to win to really show that he belonged. But not only did he do that, he actually, man, he did it really impressive. And his gallop out was really good. I loved his energy level after the race. He seemed like an extra eighth of a mile wasn't going to bother him. So I came out of that race not only getting the opportunity to ride him and to win it, but man, he's legit, man. He's got a big chance.
Well, take us back to before that race. What did you observe about him? Because you hadn't ridden him in a race before. So what did you observe about him? What did Bob tell you kind of leading into it that made you successful?
Well, early on, I mean, when he broke his maiden, man, he was so impressive, right? And then when he got into the preps for the last 2 races, especially before the Wood Memorial, you know, he was in there with 3 other of Bob's horses, and they all had speed. So they had to try and do something with one of them, and they thought that they could do that with him to take him back. And one of the races, he got away just a little funny, and it just didn't have a great trip. And the other one, they had to ease him back off and he just didn't seem to care for it. I remember Bob told me when I was going to get the opportunity to ride him, he said, "Listen, I'm going to take the blinkers off. I don't know if I'm going in the wood or the bluegrass." He said, but he's your horse. And so I watched him break his maiden, so I knew he had talent. You know, it's just a matter of, you know, getting him to run that kind of race again. And I think taking the blinkers off and just letting him be, leaving him alone. You know, listen, if someone wants to go absolutely crazy, I mean, I think he'd set off him as long as he had, as long as he was doing it and you got him in a good, happy rhythm. I don't think it's going to be a problem. But he's quick, man. He came out of that gate really, really fast, and I'm, we'll definitely use his speed to his advantage, and he just keeps running. And he didn't show me no quit the other day. So, man, I just so excited about getting the opportunity to ride him.
You talked about Giacomo and needing to come from off the pace in that Derby. This one seems to have a couple of horses, including Rodriguez, that are going to want to be on the front end. Him and East Avenue. Frankly, Citizen Bull will probably want to be there as well. You mentioned just now that you think he can sit just off the pace and make a move later. What gives you that confidence?
Just the feeling I got from him. He's extremely athletic. I like the way he handled. I felt like I could have eased him back the other day. I didn't feel like I needed to be in front. But listen, he's so naturally quick. And if you look at them 2 preparations before the Wood, he probably could have been in front either time, So, I mean, you can get in front of him. You're just going to have to run really fast to do it.
Now, you mentioned that Bob gave you that call about, he's not sure which race we're going to end up in, but he's your horse. Just talk about your relationship over the years, the fact that you can be on call for a trainer who has so many top horses like that.
Yeah, I was sitting on the bench for a long time, and he kept telling me, "Listen, I'm gonna pull you off the bench. I just got to find the horse that I want for you." And I remember the morning when he came up to me, he said, "I think I got him. I think I got the one for you. Let's see what happens." And I just been we've done so good together, me and Bob, throughout the years, and that I've never really been the rider that rode the whole barn or anything like that. But man, we've I think if you go back and look at our stake record, we've done pretty good together. So I was so happy when he gave me that call, and not only did like I said, not only did I get the opportunity to win the Wood, the way he did it was really impressive.
Jockey Mike Smith with us aboard Rodriguez next week in Derby 151. This will be your 29th Derby mount, which is an incredible thing to say, Mike. It'll be the most in Kentucky Derby history. Man, to have your career associated with that kind of longevity, that kind of high level longevity, I mean, it's got to feel really good, huh?
No, it certainly does, and it's an honor to have been in that many derbies. The only, I'm so competitive though. That means I lost
2 for 29
of them. Yeah, that ain't a very good.
I knew where you were going.
Average, man. So I gotta bump that average up this year, man. We gotta bump it up before it's all said and done.
10%. You go 3 for 30 at the Derby. I think that that's pretty okay. That's all right, man.
I'll certainly take it. I would certainly take it.
Well, speaking of, all those mounts, we've talked about Giacomo, we've talked about Justify. Is there one horse that you rode in the Derby that you didn't win on, but maybe you went in not having very high expectations and ended up running significantly better than you were expecting? Is there anyone that kind of stands out like that?
Yeah, actually, I was second and third for Wayne on and I'm just, for some reason, I'm just totally drawing a blank on their names. Charismatic won it the year that I was third.
Yeah.
I was on I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his name. But I mean, I thought I had the Derby won with him all the way up until the last 25 yards. So he was certainly one of them. And when War Emblem won as well, when I finished second, there's another horse for Wayne that ran extremely well. So yeah, I mean, there's been some that I thought couldn't lose, and look at Holy Bull. I went in, with Holy Bull that one year. I just thought that all I had to do was make sure and stay on him in the post parade, and this was going to be my first Derby, and for whatever reason, he just didn't show up that day, and then he come back a few years later and win it on one of his sons. This was pretty incredible. So, and then but I never really finished the story. With Justify going in with him, I mean, although he was so lightly racing, if he was, fighting, there was the Apollo curse that was against him. He was just a man amongst boys that year, man. He was just a beast. And if you happen to look at all of them in the paddock that that afternoon, you could just see it. I mean, he just looked bigger and stronger and faster, and all you wanted to do was just get away well. And I knew if I could get away well, not only could he win the Derby, this was the kind of horse that could maybe pull the whole thing off, the Holy Grail, which is the Triple Crown. And lo and behold, he did it. Not only was he talented, he was just extremely intelligent on top of it. You didn't have to worry about him, man. He'd go in there, he'd stand, he looked right down the racetrack, and when them doors were open for a big horse, man, he'd get out of there now. And, he made your job really easy.
When you get mounts aboard his kids, when you're riding young colts, young fillies, do you feel some justifying all of them?
Oh yeah, no, it's fun. It's fun to ride the offspring, man. It's you always try to compare them to see if they have anything that resembles or tendencies like their father did, and you do, and you see it, and he's just been some sire. He's just been incredible. Not only was he great on the track, he's been as impressive, if not even more, off the track.
Speaking of that family lineage a little bit, so Rodriguez here is a son of a Kentucky Derby winner, Authentic. You did not ride Authentic in the Derby, but you did ride him to victory in the Haskell Stakes. Is there anything that you noticed similarity-wise between Rodriguez and Authentic?
Both of them extremely athletic, and early on, Authentic had some little. He was a bit green. It took him just a little bit to really start to focus. When he retired, he had just really started to focus. He really started to see how good that horse was. But it took him just a little bit. He was a bit green for a while, but once he figured it out, man, he was what a racehorse. And he was a very, very athletic horse, just like this colt is. I mean, he moves over the ground so fluid, so easy. He feels much bigger than what he is actually because he's so athletic.
That's fascinating. Jockey Mike Smith with us aboard Rodriguez for Derby 151. Let's go ahead and let's dream together, Mike. We'll do that here on BloodHorse Monday. We're with you in the winner's circle. All the things are going well, and you hear names like Isaac Murphy, Earl Sand, Angel Cordero Jr., Gary Stevens, Kent Desormeaux, Calvin Burrell, Victor Espinoza, and John Velasquez, and then Mike Smith. This is the kind of list. Three-time winners of the Derby. It's daunting, but it's very much in front of you. What comes to mind when you hear that kind of list?
Oh, just extremely talented riders, first off and foremost. And number 3 is my favorite number, man. Why not? It can happen. Trust me. God's will, it will happen.
Then maybe a record that I don't know if you really are going to go around and promote it as much, but if you do win the Derby, you break Bill Shoemaker's record for the oldest jockey to win the Derby. What does that mean anything to you, just as far as how well you've been able to kind of keep yourself together after all these years?
Yes and no. I mean, it's I'm the oldest guy to win the Derby. I mean, that's not a something I really want to go around and say, but I am proud of the way I've taken care of myself as far as physical fitness. I made it a part of my life at a pretty young age, and I've kept up with it. I'm actually obsessed with it, which is a good thing, I guess. It would be being an athlete. I mean, it's a good thing to be obsessed with, but I mean, when all my friends, when we were in our 20s, they were all out playing golf, and I was in that gym, man. I'll be honest with you, I was like, what am I doing in here, man? I could be out in the sunshine playing golf with the guys, and I'm sitting in here in the darn gym. But I just always thought about the future for some odd reason. I always thought ahead and just thought, if I love this game so much, I want to do it as long as I can. And I'm very competitive, and I want to be as competitive. I want to be as good as I possibly can later on in life. And look what it's done. Watching guys like, Lafitte Pincay back in the day, how he took care of his body and how he was getting the opportunity to ride him in his 50s. If he wouldn't have went down and got hurt, I guarantee he'd still be right beside me in the starting gate. I mean, that guy just took such great care of himself. Him and guys like Alex Solis and some of these great riders, they taught me how to take care of my body. And here I am. I'll be 59 in August, and I'm in the gym right now, and I feel just as strong as ever, and I feel great, man. my legs are there, my core's there, and I'm not doing the running, So you got your legs and your core, and you got all that experience, man. There's nothing better. I feel very confident when I go out and ride that I'm at least gonna do I'm gonna do my job. I'm gonna do it well, and I'm gonna do the right thing. And I feel good about that. Now we just got to be good enough to win,
Well, we saw that on full display yesterday, just with Cabo Spirit, you winning that race with him. I liked what you said afterwards. You didn't know if you necessarily needed to kind of push him to the wire, but you felt like you had to get the owners their money's worth for hiring you on him. I kind of given him that little ride there. But you mentioned a bunch of, kind of legendary names for the jockeys. One of the unique things with the Kentucky Derby is jockeys from around the country. This is one of those events where you all kind of meet and sit in the same spot, whether they're riding in the Derby or they're riding in one of the races on the undercard that weekend. Is there any like special events that, usually we don't hear about that you jockeys do, like going out to eat or hanging out at someone's house, just kind of everybody uniting since you're all together?
Golf,
in one spot?
apparently.
Golf.
Yeah, apparently.
Golf.
Yeah, right. Golf.
Yeah, some of the guys do golfing.
There it is.
I'm always at Jeff Ruby's for dinner time, man. That's where I'm going to be. I'm one of the Jeff Ruby jocks, and it's an incredible restaurant. I just love it being there, and a lot of us, will gather up there and get a chance to visit, because we don't all ride at the same areas and places. And then, I think the Wednesday before, they have the Jock Tales where they, it's for a great cause. It's for the disabled riders. And it's nice to the fans get to come in. You get to meet some of the fans and the owners and trainers, and everybody kind of gathers in there. And it's a wonderful event.
Last one, and this is very selfish, Mike. We appreciate you joining us. Jockey Mike Smith here on BloodHorse Monday. You were at the 100th Wood Memorial. You won the 100th Wood Memorial. On the same day, Kendrick Carmouche got his 4,000th win.
Yeah.
He got the big placard, got to jump into the big crowd there at Aqueduct. I got to admit that I'm so glad I was there for that moment. It was so exceptional. That Aqueduct thing, and obviously that's a place that's going to be going away in our sport in a couple of years, but that Long Island thing, how much did you enjoy being there for that moment as well with Kendrick?
He took all my fans away from me, man. That used to be me back in the day.
That was you, yeah.
Yeah, they loved me back there in the wintertime. I used to do quite a bit of that kind of stuff like Kendrick did. Although I never jumped into the crowd. I wasn't brave enough to do that. But
that's why they left you for him.
That's
right.
Yeah, and they're just amazing fans, man. Listen, when they like you there, man, it means something. It really does. They're a tough crowd now. They'll let you know it if they don't feel like you're riding well enough. But man, when they love when they love you, it's a love that you ain't ever felt before. It's strong.
There you go. He's Jockey Mike Smith aboard Rodriguez for Derby 151 next week. Mike, safe trips all of next week, and hopefully we'll catch up with you down the line. Thanks so much for joining us here on BloodHorse Monday.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we appreciate it. All right. Less golf, more gym. That's what we learned from Mike Smith today. You understand me? Less golf, more gym with Mike Smith. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All
you
right,
guys have a good day. All right,
likewise. Thank you so much. There you go. I was there for that Wood Memorial. It was one of those races, Sean, that I'm one of these guys. I fall in love with horses that I get to watch in person. Are you like me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I think all of us have this kind of bias.
Yes.
But if you go by the numbers purely, last eighth, last 3/8, etc., Rodriguez is absolutely a contender in this year's Kentucky Derby. And you get a guy who's in his 29th Derby. Yeah. This is what we're talking about, right? A guy with experience, with a horse that frankly is going to be near the front because he breaks well.
Yeah. That's the perfect
He's
trip,
live for
usually.
me, man. He's live for me.
Usually in the Derby, that perfect trip is kind of the ones that are sitting right behind the pace. Now, my biggest question with him is his 2 wins. He had everything his own way on the lead.
Yep.
His defeats were when he did not have that. Mike sounds pretty confident that's not going to be an issue. The taking off the blinkers seems to have kind of, made a difference from Mike's perspective. And so I do see where that could, if he's able to get him to relax just off the pace, and it sounds like Mike has a good idea of how to do that. I think this horse is going to be very live. If he's on the lead, unless nobody else goes with him, I can't necessarily say that I really like him if he's in that position, just because I know horses like East Avenue are going to be up there.
Yes.
Citizen Bull is going to be present.
Sure.
Admire Daytona, I'd imagine, after UAE Derby where he was in the front, I'd imagine he's probably going to try to be forward as well. And Owen Almighty, there's enough horses in there that are going to be up on the front. But if Mike is able to do exactly what he wants to do, he's able to kind of get that justified trip where he does get him to relax just right behind the pace, be the first one to make that run. I think he's a live contender for sure.
I totally agree. We've already seen his dad. We saw Authentic do it.
Yeah.
He ran the exact race that we're talking about. And so I I'm very high on him. I know it's at least part biased because I was there in New York for it, but those are also the only interviews. So if people don't know, I get to do a 10 to noon daily radio show on our local ESPN affiliate here. And if a coach said to me, just trust me, or I just know, I would push back. When Mike Smith says, I just know, I let him go. Yeah.
I think at this
that's
point,
something I trust. Yeah.
He's won enough races and he's won enough big races at this point where if he knows, he knows. Now,
I literally said, "What? How do you know?" He goes, "I know."
Now
I just do.
counter your just because I was there thing.
Yeah.
You're also at the Jiff Ruby. You were also at the Bluegrass.
That's fair.
Do you feel the same way about Burnham Square and Final Gambit, or do you feel a little bit more confident in Rodriguez?
Much more confident in Rodriguez.
So then I'd say at least it's maybe slightly not biased.
I will tell you there is a bias, and we'll get to it in a second here with some of our trainer clips that you've been putting together. I think East Avenue's run in the Bluegrass is being wildly underrated.
Yeah, I remember you said that to me the other day.
I think I think he's the fastest horse in the Kentucky Derby.
All right.
I really do.
Bold claim.
There's
plenty of them in there. Are you sure you don't want to double check?
I think he's the fastest horse in the Kentucky Derby. I think East Avenue is going to be the lead in this race. That's my opinion.
I could see that.
Yeah. I just think it's the only thing he knows how to do, and I'm not picking on the horse. It's what he does. And so I think he's going to be near the front, or the front, excuse me. And I think Rodriguez is going to have to trail him the whole way and just hope that he has more the last 8. I think that's where we're at. And then you're going to have plenty of others, Tappan Street, Sovereignty, Journalism, etc., that are all going to be in that next group pushing those kinds of horses.
Now, do you think, sticking with East Avenue here, so if he's going to be up there on the lead, do you think he can last the full mile and a quarter up there on the lead?
I don't.
Okay.
But we have seen way weirder things at East Avenue winning the Kentucky Derby.
Yes, we have.
Way weirder. So
Bridge Strike.
Yeah. There are tons of examples. Country House, there's all kinds of examples. Something like of the last 18 winners, 4 of them have been the longest odds on the board.
Yeah.
If you do anything in horse racing 4 out of 18 times, that's exceptional.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, on top of that, we haven't had a horse win the Derby since Authentic that won their final prep race. We've had 4 straight horses win the race. Even when you look at 2021, whether you count Medina Spirit or you count Mandaloon, both of them lost their final prep race. So it's something that anything can happen.
Yeah, I agree. We can do a ranking next week on BloodHorse Monday of our favorite second place finishers in the preps.
All right.
Do something like that.
I think we could do that.
A little sovereignty talk. So there you go. I appreciate Mike jumping on with us here. And hey, we're putting a bow on the April season, but the weather isn't the only thing that heats up in June. Having procured 2-time Breeders' Cup winners Stormy Liberal and Golden Sense, as well as Grade 1 winners Adair Manor Yaupon and Warlight Goddess, the OBS June 2-year-olds and horses of racing age sale is the place to find ready-made talent ahead of the summer's top races. Before the juvenile auction season comes to an end, come see what the 2-year-old source to the world has to offer at OBS from June 17 to 19. Again, go find them at OBS June 17 to 19 as well. Really appreciate Mike Smith jumping on with us and the good folks at OBS getting in with us very early in our process here at BloodHorse Monday. Sean Collins, Louie Rabaut, hanging out with you. Let's get to some of this trainer sound. You spend, I think it's you and Jenny Reese. Do you sleep in the same tent with cots, or like how does this work that you're at Churchill so often together?
Honestly, we're probably going to have to start doing that next year.
The HBBA has a house.
I know.
I'm just saying,
like, take a room in the house and just sleep there for the entire month. That would honestly make my life so much easier.
A lot easier.
I could then I could wake up at like 5 o'clock instead of at 4:15 because I could just walk right out the door and be on the backstretch. But yeah, you're going to hear some of these trainer clips that we're going to have for you here. You're going to hear Jenny Reese a couple times asking a couple questions. So her and I have been the dynamic duo back there on the backside. For the
Shout out to someone who I know listens to this show, and Jenny Reese. So I appreciate her very much. Let's start with East Avenue, just because we were talking about him just now. So you, I was there when you did this interview with trainer Brendan Walsh.
Making sure the camera didn't blow over in the wind. So I greatly appreciate that.
You're welcome. Star of the show right here. And so, but with trainer Brendan Walsh, we go to the East Avenue bounce back. It was something that we got to talk with because he is a Godolphin trainee with Michael Banahan a couple episodes ago. And I remember asking him, what happened in Louisiana Derby? He goes, I don't know. So now we know that he's at least capable of a considerably better run. Both of his best ones coming at Keeneland. But here's Sean with trainer Brendan Walsh talking East Avenue.
This time he had to knuckle down and he had to fight. I don't think he learned an awful lot last year. You know, everything came to him so easy, and you know he ended up on the lead at both his first 2 races. Never saw a horse, so you just wonder how much he learned. The Breeders' Cup was a non-event. I mean, he threw me for a loop in New Orleans. You know, I still couldn't give you 100% answer on why he ran as poor as he did. Maybe we were a little easy on him too. He was just doing everything so easy. Maybe we just weren't. Maybe he really had to knuckle down on him in his work, and we did that after the Risen Star, and I think it showed on Bluegrass Day.
Well, what's your mindset when you see a performance like that in the Risen Star? You don't necessarily have a 100% answer, to just have faith in the horse, have faith that he's going to get back to his top form and just keep pushing forward to the Bluegrass.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, obviously, you think about it after, and you don't have a definite answer. There's a question mark over the horse. Everybody is thinking he's this or he's that. But he is a very good horse. I mean, he's super talented as we've had. And, we just had to have faith in him, but we just had to just knuckle down and teach him a little more. And I think he learned a lot in the Bluegrass, which was great to see. And, hopefully he makes a big step forward in the Derby as well.
In that Bluegrass, he had the lead for most of the race. He kind of dug in the stretch, battled off some of his competition, and then was just caught right on the wire. How much confidence does that give you in his ability to move forward into the next spot?
It gives me a lot of ability, because he had every opportunity in the Bluegrass to do what he did in the Risen Star if he was an ungenuine horse, and I think he showed that he was as genuine as they came. And like I said, he's probably still learning. So if he learned from the Bluegrass, then that's why I think he's set to make a step forward.
I said Louisiana Derby earlier. I meant Risen Star, of course. But let's go back. Let's say Burnham Square doesn't catch him at the wire and he wins the Bluegrass. How differently are we talking about East Avenue?
I think we'd be talking about a lot differently.
So literally like a tenth of a second, we're talking about him essentially as a horse that can't get the distance, can't do these things. I mean, it's interesting how the narratives develop based on a tenth of a second in horse racing, but it's the reality of our sport.
Yeah. Now it would be different, is he just getting his head down and Burnham Square was about to catch him, or if you just take Burnham Square completely out of the race and he re-rallies after Owen Almighty kind of gave him that run, he holds off River Thames. I think if Burnham Square wasn't there at all, I think we're talking about him, as I almost knock over the mic, I think we're talking about him as probably one of the big favorites with that bounce back in the Bluegrass,
especially with the obvious speed that he had at Keeneland, just obvious.
And on top of that, so that interview that I did with Brendan was right after he had just worked out at Churchill Downs, his first one since the Bluegrass. He looked terrific. And I was getting
really comfortable.
I was getting texts from a couple people that were on the front side talking about how terrific he looked. It sounds like, every year we have that wise guy horse. He's probably one of the candidates that's going to be one of those wise guy horses from what I'm hearing people talk about on the racetrack. But then I also thought of this too, and I'm interested to get your opinion. It seems like a lot of times in the last, couple years, everybody's really high on the horse that runs second in the Bluegrass Stakes, and then that horse ends up not running as well. You think Highly Motivated, you think Just a Touch, you think a couple of those horses that, everybody's kind of like, oh, they ran so well in the Bluegrass, he's going to come back and run well, and then they don't. So, I'm kind of on the fence there, but I do think it's going to be tough for him. I do think there's going to be quite a bit of pace pressure, but if something weird happens, his pace pressure doesn't break, and he's up there by himself, I like him a lot to try to wear that thing.
Right? Yeah, for sure. And so here's the other part. The Wood, the Bluegrass, the Arkansas Derby, Louisiana Derby. What do they all have in common? They're not great predictors for high-level success in the Kentucky Derby. They're not. Yeah. Right? Now, occasional jump-ups from some of the horses, but the Florida Derby, the Santa Anita Derby, these are the mainstays of where we have gotten the best horses the last 25 years. Let's call it what it is, right? Now, the Bluegrass, we just assume, hey, less travel. We're at Keeneland already. That's going to translate. Those dirt surfaces do not translate all the time. No. We see horses that are not good at Keeneland come to Churchill. They're just fine. And vice versa, for sure. Great at Churchill, get to Keeneland in the fall. It's like, whose horse is this? And so I'm always just leery of the Bluegrass. I think we want it to be the prep because so many people love Keeneland and the feel and all that. And they want that to be the prep that comes through. And I think wanting something and it actually being true are very different. Yeah. And I think in this case, now, I want to be very clear, though. You can't make that speed up that East Avenue had at Keeneland. You can't make that up. That's legitimate. He's very talented. And what Brendan said, I thought was what stood out to me about his performance, which was everything was set up for him to do Risen Star Part 2.
Yeah.
And he did not do that in the Bluegrass. I think he's a major contender. I do wonder about the distance, but we wonder that about everybody except for 2 horses in this field, 3 horses, something like that. If that puts him in with 17 other horses and he's got front end speed, I think it puts him in the contender list.
Well, talking about that difference in the racetrack, does it concern you at all? Not counting his maiden win at Ellis Park, because
his
who
highest
knows what
level
he's
success
doing.
is at Keeneland.
Exactly. Do
Yeah.
you have any kind of reservations about the fact that the couple times he's
Yes.
not been running at Keeneland?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I do. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think the works and being at Churchill, being in the barn there, I think you can overcome some of those things. And I also think being in front of 150,000 people clicks for some horses and not for others.
Yeah. I do think Keeneland is probably one of the best
For crowd noise and different
crowd
things.
noise,
Yep.
probably one of the best final prep
Totally
races
agree.
that prepares the horses for the Derby. Now, it wasn't as big a crowd as usual because it was the Tuesday this year, but still compared to probably what was at
It's
the
still a
Wood or
busy
something like
paddock.
that.
It's still, those
Exactly.
things. There's still some activity, people around. I agree with you on that.
I think
for sure.
I think Oaklawn, the Arkansas Derby,
Yes.
and the Bluegrass.
Florida Derby does that too. There's a good crowd.
I
in
haven't
South
been to
Florida,
the
too.
Florida Derby.
It's a good crowd in South
So
Florida.
if it's anything like when I went to the Pegasus, and I imagine it's probably the same.
It's
But
very
I feel like those are probably the big ones to try to get them prepared for the crowd noise.
All right. So where should we go next, young Sean? You want to go? Let's go to the Ruby winners. How about that?
Well,
Or where are you at?
Well, I'm thinking we were talking about East Avenue. The
Yes.
other one that I heard a lot of good things about that was that breezed on Saturday was Sovereignty.
Yeah.
He had a pretty good breeze. Now it was a little funky looking because his workmate kind of left him in the middle of the stretch. His workmate was only working 4 furlongs. He was working 5 furlongs.
Right.
So he pulled away. And
It looks so impressive.
I know. Again, I was getting texts from people that were on the front side, like, "Oh my gosh, did you see that?" And I was like, "Well, no, because I'm on the back side." So I saw him come around. Way in front of his stablemate. But he looked pretty good. It seems like he's been settling in pretty good. He's had a lot of energy though, as he's been kind of settling in here. And so let's hear what Bill Mott has to say about that.
He's doing well. I mean, he's been a little geared up since he's been here. I mean, he's excited to be here when he comes out on the track. I mean, he's very, pretty high energy right now, and he's having a good look around. I mean, there's a lot to look at around at Churchill, and he's taken it all in, even though he's been here before. But he's been fairly strong in his gallops leading up to this work. So hopefully this work will kind of smooth him out a little bit and settle him down. We want him to naturally conserve some of that energy.
When you look at the Florida Derby, it looked like he pretty much ran his race and just maybe Tappan Street got a little bit too far ahead of him for him to catch him there. Just how do you analyze that performance looking forward towards the Derby?
Well, I mean, watching the race, I mean, we were in fairly good position down the backside. Tappan Street opened up 2 or 3 lengths, going around the turn while we were still waiting to sort of begin our run. I mean, we started chasing a little bit going into the last turn, but Gulfstream's a fairly speed favoring track when you turn for home. I mean, horses that are on the lead there are sometimes very hard to catch, particularly if they're good horses. So I wasn't disappointed in his race. Some might say maybe it's a good thing that it wasn't his best race. So maybe he's saving enough energy for for the Derby. Hopefully he runs a big one on Derby Day.
Could have used you on the camera there. You left me too early when he stepped out a shot there as I was in the middle of the interview. But
have they named his jockey for the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, Junior Alvarado.
Junior is going to be back in time. Okay,
yes.
great.
I think he just rode at Keeneland a couple days ago.
Okay, great. So
he should be back.
I saw that they hadn't made a change, and I didn't know if that was because Junior was good enough to. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say about Sovereignty. He was talking about the Florida Derby. I think the thing that stands out for me is when you have a horse that needs to close that much and you make the jock change. And I think we talked about this on this show.
Mm-hmm.
Timing that close and those things. And it's not a put down at all of Manny Franco. 0%. But when you ride Aqueduct every day for an entire winter, and then you have to ship down to Miami, ride a horse you've never ridden, and time it, and still get close, by the way. When Tappan Street's running his eyeballs out, I think Sovereignty's totally set up here. He's totally fine. 5-6 to 1 on Derby Day. I think of the closers, he's going to be the best one.
Yes.
He loves Churchill Downs.
Of the deep closers, he's the one that I have the most faith in. I think that he is one of the ones that it doesn't really matter what the pace scenario is. He's going to come with the run regardless. Yep. Now, the pace scenario might be the difference maker between him winning and, just being part of the superfecta. But I think I feel like unless he really gets cut off somewhere and he gets stuck in some kind of traffic, I think at this point it's hard to imagine a scenario where he doesn't hit at least the superfecta because he's going to be coming with that run. He likes Churchill Downs. Yes. That long stretch is going to help him out. He's going to be coming really with that big long stride of his, and he's full of energy right now leading into the race. I've seen nothing but positive signs from him being out there each morning.
I love that helmet, by the way. I never get tired of seeing it. It makes me smile every time. The Bill Mott helmet. Does it have a name?
I don't know. The most impressive thing that I've seen on the
Is it the Hell
backstretch-
Mott?
I like
Get
that.
it
The
done.
Hell Mott.
Get it done. Get it done, Bill.
But the most impressive thing I've seen on the backstretch the last couple of weeks is Sovereignty's first day out there on the racetrack. Bill Mott just threw himself over the rail to go fix his saddle before he actually started jogging. It was the most fluid. It was the most fluid thing that I've seen. And for somebody, I don't think I could do that at 25. And for
58-year-old Mike Smith, dogging us about not being at the gym. We got Bill Mott flipping over fences. See, I don't
need
need
to start working out.
I need this on my Monday. Come on.
We're going to be doing this episode. We're going to be doing next week's episode from the gym as we work out in the middle of it.
Doing sit-ups, crunches for an hour. Oh, man. Sean Collins.
It was so graceful the way he got over that rail.
BloodHorse Monday. Hanging out with you. Let's get into these horses that you and I saw at the Ruby. We'll get into Final Gambit here first. Mega impressive. Second win ever. Comes out of that maiden win, goes ahead and passes everybody in the Ruby, flying. Another one of these horses, if you want to use that final fractions theory kind of number, doesn't seem inhibited by the 10 furlongs. I would put him firmly on the list of horses I trust to get the distance. Do you agree?
I agree. But
okay.
We all know what the one question mark is, and that's the fact he hasn't raced on dirt before. I think that he's looked pretty good in the mornings here. Okay. He's had 3 workouts over the track so far, but who cares about my opinion? Let's hear what Brad Cox had to say about how he's getting over the dirt.
Obviously, getting him used to the dirt, and I really like what I see from him. He doesn't seem to, doesn't seem to slow him down. His gallop outs are great, so he's moving. Ryder's very happy with him. He's moving great, so we'll see how things go over the next few weeks.
And, he started his career on the turf, and then he had 3 straight starts on the synthetic. He's been training up at Turfway throughout the winter. And so what are the key things that you're looking for as far as his movement over the dirt to make sure he's ready on the first Saturday in May?
Just how he's moving. And, look, he's a good going horse to begin with. He's light on his feet. He's athletic. And, getting feedback from riders is very important, and they seem to really like what they feel from him on the dirt. So everything's been very positive so far.
And it seems like he's really kind of developed recently. He's been coming along quickly, winning the Jeff Ruby very impressively with that last to first move. So is this kind of him handling the dirt now versus if he wasn't handling it as a 2-year-old? Is that just him growing up?
I think so, but mentally he's grown up a lot. You can watch some of his replays. Even in the post parade and stuff, he used to goof around a bit. And he's a very playful horse, good feeling, lots of energy, and he's just learning to listen to what the rider and whoever's just walking him wants him to do. Responding to his commands, and he's growing up mentally as well as physically over the winter, and he's getting better all the time. And I think that's a key thing moving forward, just trying to win the Derbies, just being right the first Saturday in May, and he's definitely going the right way.
For a sport that loves its merch, you're in that wearing a 151 hat, right? You got the hoodie, right? No one dominates the merch game like Brad Cox.
Oh yeah,
he's got everything. He's got that logo. He's got the 3 letters. Brad Cox Racing on everything, dominating jackets, hats, vests, shirts.
And you see people wearing them. You see people wearing them at the track all the time. Yeah.
Yes. Oh man, no, he's playing it out. Final Gambit on dirt. And here's why I believe him. I saw 2 fills. I watched Rich Strike. Frankly, endlessly wasn't bad in the Derby last year. Yeah, he just wasn't as good as the 8 horses ahead of him, right? So I've seen it happen. You've seen it happen. That's what mostly gives me good feelings about this horse. I still think Brad's way higher on Tappan Street than he is on him.
Now, my counter to that is 2 fills and Rich Strike had been racing on dirt before they were racing
totally
Turfway. I know, 2 fills was racing pretty well on dirt. I know everybody kind of comments on Rich Strike, but the one thing he had going for him going into the Derby was his one victory was at Churchill Downs. So he was experienced on that track. We did see Endlessly last year, first start on dirt. I know we both think that he ran better than people give him credit for, but he also still finished in the middle of the pack in that first start on dirt. And, he was caught pretty far back. But does that, when we keep giving the Jeff Ruby all this credit, but they also had horses that had dirt experience. Same with Seize the Gray last year, winning the Preakness. So does that doesn't concern you at all? The fact that there's just no dirt race experience for him?
I'm not on Final Gambit if that's something that needs to be said on this show.
Okay.
Yeah. No, he's not one of my contenders for sure.
Now, I do
distance,
like him a lot.
Distance doesn't, for sure. If he was in the American Turf, I'd be giving him serious looks.
Okay.
Serious looks. Because frankly, when we talked with Brad Cox before, the turf came up with him.
Yeah.
But he got into the Derby. You got to try it. I get it. These parts I understand for sure. You got to try the Derby. But no, I would be looking the other way. A neighbor of mine, Whit Beckman, lives over this part of Louisville, has Flying Mohawk, who finished second. Fun connections here, of course, Jason Worth and all the folks in that group. But we saw this horse finish, frankly, a difficult second in the Ruby, a much more difficult overall trip than Final Gambit had to deal with in this one. But you talked with Whit.
Yes.
Your sort of sense of him being in the Derby here.
Well, they are taking the shot with the dirt. Again, he has not run on dirt. So just like we just talked about with Final
And you
Gambit.
and I liked Flying Mohawk going into the Ruby based on a turf win at Fairgrounds coming in fact.
Yes.
Right.
And I liked his maiden win on the turf at Churchill as well.
Yep.
So, he had his pedigree screams grass. His, his race record so far has been all grass except for the Jeff Ruby, which he did run pretty well. It sounded like at first, right after the Jeff Ruby, the feeling I got from the connections was, well, we're in the Derby. We're going to go to the Derby just because it is the Derby.
Sure.
As I've talked to Whit, maybe he's faking it. I don't know. But as I've talked to Whit, he's over the last couple of weeks, he's been getting, it sounds like, more and more confident that he's going to be able to handle the dirt. This horse has trained on the dirt.
Yes, he has.
Throughout his career.
Yep.
And it seems like he's getting a little bit more confident with everything. He's really relying on, if the race setup sets up for him, we just have to make sure that he's ready to run, because we're starting to think that dirt might not be a problem. And he has been looking pretty good out there on the racetrack. But let's hear what Whit had to say about him being on the dirt.
I've never had an issue. He's always worked really well on it, just as his pedigree and maybe just some of his physical attributes had us spotting him on the turf early on. But like I said, he's strengthened up a lot since 2-year-old year and come through. Like in New Orleans, he's putting up some really strong works. We'll kind of next couple of weeks ratchet it up a little bit. Obviously, he's going to have to get over the dirt, really well. And like I said, we could get an officer. You never know what's going to happen Derby Day, but in the meantime, we'll just do everything we can to prepare him for what could come.
He had to be 1-2 in the Jeff Ruby to get into this race because he'd only raced on grass. So did you see that as sort of a bridge race, or did you see that as a good spot to try to be
Well,
1-2
I think,
in?
just as far as it was a points race, but it also kind of put him into the transitional thing where you go on the poly, not necessarily straight to dirt, and I felt the horse, he's always trained very well on dirt, so I knew that he would run a respectable race up there. Like, I was pretty confident we were going to get in. I knew I had the right horse. I knew he was training well enough. I knew, the Ruby's just one of those where, like, Turfway's a tough surface to predict as well. You can't really say how if a horse is more apt to run on grass or dirt is going to run better on that. You just can't. It's just one of those, it changes day to day. So, but I felt just with everything he had done for us and just the type of horse he was, that would be a good spot to bridge the gap between here, the dirt track, and hopefully get in at the same time.
He breezed with Honor Marie today. Why are they a good pair to go out there?
I hope the one teaches the other one exactly kind of what you need to, think away. No, it's just I want to get the one ready for the dirt. And like I said, Honor Marie's always been a solid dirt horse, good workhorse. They just, for where they're both at in their schedules too, they just match up perfectly. So, I guess putting the horse in the race, it's a war. It's like trip is everything. There's 1,001 things that can go wrong once the gates open. So like, you don't necessarily need the best horse to win the race, but you just need a horse that gets the trip, can handle the distance, and, you don't know what the conditions are going to be on the day. So I just think I'm not going to stress, not going to worry about, the things we can't control, the things we can, or just try to get our horses ready as possible. And then everything else, just enjoy the ride and, appreciate where we're at.
Future superstar.
Oh, yeah.
Whit Beckman, no question in my mind. Had Honor Marie in the Derby last year. You heard them mentioning them working in tandem. Sean asking the question there. Thanks, Jenny, for being part of the podcast as well. It's interesting to hear him talk the way that he does, because he talks about, yes, I knew his best next step was poly if we were going to move toward dirt. In other words, using Turfway as a stepping stone toward the dirt at Churchill Downs.
Yeah.
But that he's always worked well on dirt as well. It's an interesting reminder that while he qualified at Turfway, he was doing most of his training and working at Fairgrounds before he got to Kentucky, right? And so, yes, a win on the poly, but not a life on the poly either.
Yeah, and I believe I went back and looked. I believe he's only ever had 3 recorded workouts on the turf course, and they were back at Saratoga in the summer.
Wow.
So most of his breezes have come on the dirt throughout his entire career, even leading up to when he ran in the Pilgrim Stakes last year, leading up to his maiden win, leading up to his allowance win at Fairgrounds, and then leading up to the Jeff Ruby. He never breezed at Turfway before he got there. He was breezing down at Fairgrounds. So he is. he does have more experience on the dirt actually than Final Gambit does, because Final Gambit was mostly breezing on the synthetic. So yeah.
There you go. Should be an interesting entry. And again, one that did most of his running late, but was closer to the pace than Final Gambit was in that race, but not much.
Yeah,
they were both way back.
He got shuffled back quite a bit. And he's one of the, out of the two, I think Final Gambit, we've seen what we're going to get from him. He's going to drop out the back and he's going to be coming with that run. I do think Flying Mohawk, depending on how he breaks, and depending on how the horses around him breaks, I do kind of see where he could, he might be all the way back there with Final Gambit again, or I could definitely see him sitting like that mid pack, like, somewhere between that 8th and 12th place. I think that would be a good spot for him.
Jockey Joe Ramos will get the mount there with Foot Flying Mohawk, one of the best at Turfway this last season, but certainly also tearing it up. A place that you and I will be in a couple of weeks, Horseshoe Indianapolis. We'll get up there in a couple of weeks. And the last one we definitely need and want to get into here, he's got two in. It's Tiztastic, it's publisher, it's Steve Asmussen. And it's interesting because it doesn't matter how many all-time wins you have. The Derby is a different animal, right?
Exactly.
And so I know Mike Smith talks about only having 2, which is a ridiculous number already. But just for trainers, how difficult it is to even get to this spot, let alone win one of these. When you talked with him, what's his general mood? How do you think he's feeling? I don't want to say it's another day at the office. It's the Derby. It's not another day at the office. But how is Steve approaching things, you think?
Well, Steve seems fairly confident that he's got these horses peaking at this time right now. So you have Publisher, who has never won a race before. He's still a maiden, but he's been holding his own down there in Arkansas. He was one of those horses that a lot of people talked about him after the Southwest because he was making a run. He got cut off in the middle of the stretch from a tiring horse. And a lot of people liked him coming back in the Rebel. Rebel kind of unfolded weirdly. You had Matticat Road up there. Cole Battle was able to run him down, but Matticat Road kind of stayed up there on a speed favoring track. So Publisher still ran respectable behind him, but he ran much better in the Arkansas Derby to finish second. And you'll hear from Steve, he's been kind of, even though he hasn't won, he's been holding his own training-wise against Tiztastic, against Magnitude, who won the Risen Star so impressively earlier in the year. And so, he's always been on Steve's Derby radar, even though he is a maiden, which is why he's been running in the prep races as a maiden. Tiztastic, he was one that I talked to Steve about actually last year as a 2-year-old. And I remember him telling me about part of the reason why he didn't go out to the Breeders' Cup was because they didn't feel like he was mentally mature enough to really handle the flight and handle the travel and everything. And it seems like he's really grown up a lot, and he's now getting to the point where he's putting the talent together with the mental aspects. So he does sound, you can never 100% tell with Steve, but it does sound like he's feeling pretty confident about where the horses are at this point.
And here is trainer Steve Asmussen with Sean a couple of days ago on Tiztastic and Publisher.
Nice horse. Went to Saratoga last summer and came out in what proved to be an extremely popular maiden race, and he followed that up with 2 excellent runs at Kentucky Downs, which shows his versatility. I mean, I think it showed that he stayed early and that distance was going to be right in his wheelhouse. And then off of those, he ran some solid races here in the fall, but we're dealing with a much bigger, stronger, and faster horse now.
And Publisher, his progression, which he's still eligible for non-winners of 1.
The fun part about Publisher is maybe both of us can break our maiden in the Derby, but Publisher's been top quality horse and kept company, with the Magnitudes and the Tiztastics his entire life. And I know that his ability level stacks up extremely well against those. And he's still capable of more. The thing about Publisher that it gives you unbelievable confidence is what kind of a horse he is to run. I mean, he is going to be the easiest horse that we've ever saddled in the Derby, as far as how he takes the surroundings and just his personality. He's not going to waste an ounce of energy doing anything other than running.
A couple weeks ago, we had Aaron Wellman on this show. We wanted to talk about Built. He said, hey, let me tell you about this horse named Journalism. Right. He pointed us toward Journalism, and he, by the way, was completely correct. Steve Asmussen wanted to talk Publisher. And I think it's worth mentioning that this is, look, I try not to do the between the lines thing with trainers. I don't think you have to here. He keeps talking about Publisher, how easy it is to handle this horse, how honest the efforts are, etc. did I miss something in this interview? You were right there. I mean, he's that high on Publisher.
Yeah, he's very high on Publisher. And I will say, they just breezed 2 days ago on Saturday. You were there for that. It sounds like a lot of people, myself included, we like Publisher better out of that work. Now, I did see our good friend Matt Dinnerman down there at Oaklawn, who he saw the same exact thing where it looked like Publisher was outworking Tiztastic at Oaklawn throughout the winter. And so he said, don't be too concerned about that if you're a Tiztastic fan, the fact that it looked like Publisher was moving a little bit better. But yeah, Steve seems pretty high on Publisher. And I mean, we've had maidens in the Derby before. The first one that pops in my mind recently was Trojan Nation a few years ago. But this is a different maiden. I feel like some of those guys, they like Trojan Nation, he just kind of jumped in that final round of prep races, collected the second place from a pace that kind of collapsed. Publisher's been in this for 3 Derby prep races already. He's been getting the points. He's been running well. He's been getting the class test. And so he's not your average maiden. We haven't had a maiden win the Derby since Broker's Tip in 1933. But I mean, hey, if there's going to be another maiden to win the Derby, I think he's probably one of the best shots we've had in a long time.
Who doesn't remember the 1933 Kentucky Derby? Come on, Sean.
The fighting finish. That was one of the most epic derbies in history.
Actually is, yes.
Yeah. He never won another race, by the way, after that. The Kentucky Derby was the only race Broker's Tip ever won.
It's awesome.
Talk about the right day to show up.
Not a bad day to be great. The thing with Publisher, and this goes back to the point system. Do you like Publisher being in and Beza not, for example?
I'm okay with it. Yeah, because you look at it. Now, I think Baeza's the better horse probably, but Publisher has been in it for more dances. He earned the points the hard way. He was in for 3 spots versus Baeza. He was developing a little bit later, so he only had the 1 prep race. Do I think long term who will be the better horse? Right now, I'd probably say Baeza, but I do think Publisher deserves to be in there.
Publisher and Baeza Talks brings us to our guy Frank Angst, joins us in front of books at the BloodHorse offices. Frank, happy Monday. And I know you've written very recently, or at least the BloodHorse, bloodhorse.com, of course, for all the great stuff going on about Baeza and that weird trip to and not to the Derby.
Yeah, we have a column in BloodHorse Daily called The Road that myself and Byron King kind of take turns penning. And I thought I'd take on that issue. To me, I know what Sean's saying, but frankly, I don't understand why we have to change the points rule every year. It seems like they find something to change. I don't know why a horse is penalized for a small field. Quite frankly, that was the best field assembled of any Derby prep this year. You had the top 2 ranked horses, one of which is a champion, and he defeated that horse, Citizen Bull. So I think that's the shame of it, that's the rule that's keeping him out. I mean, it's not really fair that the trainers in California, the owners in California, you want them to take their Derby horse across the country to find a bigger field. It doesn't make any sense to me. The thing that I suggested, if we really want to gauge points on the amount of horses in the race, just don't award 4th and 5th, or don't award 5th. But I think if you run 2nd in the Santa Anita Derby, and you should be in the Kentucky Derby. I'm not going to pick on who should be out.
Yeah, right.
That effort should get that horse in the Derby where they're not having to sweat out 3 horses scratching or anything like that. You should be in the Kentucky Derby.
Frank Angst with us. bloodhorse.com, of course. That story went up on April 18th. If you were looking for The Road, go check that out. Of course, that's Byron King and Frank Angst on that one. But of course, we wanted to preview the May magazine. Of course, we'll put up the promo code for you in this episode as well. The QR code, I should say, so that you can get that physical magazine. Sean, you understand me? The May magazine to your place. What's going on in the May magazine, Frank?
Yeah, it's our Kentucky Derby preview and a little Preakness stuff in there too, as we're a monthly. So get it all in there. And boy, it's a jam-packed issue for sure. A lot of our readers already have the virtual issue that's out. The print issue should be coming out tomorrow and throughout this week for our subscribers. So fortunately enough, because we're always doing a little bit of handicapping of what features might be interesting when you're doing a monthly and planning things quite a few weeks out. The main feature in there, the main human interest feature, is on Michael McCarthy, of journalism, and talks a lot about how he got into the sport from an early age as a kind of with his dad attending the races, and just the the top horses that he's trained as a trainer and an assistant trainer. Made a Derby first time last year with Endlessly, and we mentioned earlier today, but now it looks like he has the Derby, the likely Derby favorite, and he's certainly well positioned, has enough experience, I think, to handle that pressure and be up to the task.
Bear Rispoli aboard, journalism likely favorite in the Kentucky Derby off his very good performances out west. No issues for him being favorite.
Clear favorite
In this case. But Frank, also, wrapping up that OBS sale, the most recent one here, by all measures, as far as I can tell, very successful. Finally, the weather playing along. Any major takeaways from the sale itself?
I mean, first of all, I think I have to start with Governor DeSantis appearing on the second last day. With the decoupling issue going on, that potentially could have really had everybody involved questioning a little bit if they should be investing in 2-year-old unraced horses when there's some unknowns in South Florida right now, mainly because of that legislation. But to have him come there and really back the industry, I think that was important. Frankly, the sale was already doing pretty well even before he came, but it was nice to have that reinforced. And then the sale ends up having a record average, which is terrific. Total 9 horses sold for 7 figures. So really nice sale. We like that OBS has sponsored this outlet, and maybe we had a little something to do with that. No, I'm kidding about that. But, really nice to see that performance in Florida, and I think it provides a little bit of a reminder that people down there are in for the long haul. They're not going to be scared off by some of this nonsense going on with the lawmakers.
Yeah, no, but I think your point about Governor DeSantis is I hate to put all the other things aside. It was the story of the OBS sale.
Yeah.
Was his it wasn't just verbal support, him showing up from Tallahassee, Frank. I agree with you. I think that was it was a key moment. And I think if I'm in the legislature there, I'm looking at that going, maybe this isn't the time to push this forward.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's obviously going to veto whatever's passed, but I think beyond that, I think because this is it's a Republican majority there. Right. So with the Republican governor taking this stance, I think people that maybe lawmakers that were maybe a little bit slightly in favor, I think will now be slightly opposed or beyond that. It'll be interesting, and I'm no political expert on Florida. I'm no expert on Florida politics, but I think in general, I think that's what we're looking at here, and it's certainly what we hope.
Yeah, no, and when we deal with issues in Kentucky, it's a different dynamic because we do have Republican majorities in the houses, and then we have a Democratic, governor. In Florida, it's a different animal, and you needed the governor to come out and say, hey, I'm on this side of the line with you guys as far as party line, but I'm against this issue. And I'm with you, Frank. I think that was really an important moment for a lot of people in Florida who saw all the work that they've done for generations potentially just going away because of one bill.
Yeah, for sure. It was really good to hear that support. And, we'll work on the future, but it's good to have that in place.
Yeah, it's nice to have that kind of bump. And I wanted to thank everyone that worked on the coverage of the OBS sale, and certainly the representatives from OBS who gave us all the great information, Todd and his team, and certainly Olivia on ours here at BloodHorse and BloodHorse.com. Good wraps on the sales, articles on that, I should say, on the sales at BloodHorse.com. You can go check out all those things there as part of BloodHorse Daily as well. If you have not subscribed to that, totally free to your inbox every single day. And of course, we always want you to get that physical magazine. We'll put that QR code down at the bottom in just a second. Frank, we appreciate you, buddy. Anything we should be looking forward to on the website this week? And of course, as we get into Derby.
Just Sean's excellent coverage continues. We really appreciate that. And Byron King, and it won't be long till we start having the previews of all these races, the Derby, the Oaks, and so many other grade ones. The Torpedo Anna, the horse of the year, is preparing for the La Troyenne. So, this race, this weekend, the Belmont Stakes card and weekend, and the Breeders' Cup, these are the weekends that largely determine the championships in our sport. So time to gear up.
That's right. 6 months apart, the Derby and the Breeders' Cup, just 2 spectacular weekends of racing. Frank, we really thank you. Of course, BloodHorse.com for everything Frank Angst related. We'll see you next week, buddy.
Thanks, Lou.
Thanks, Frank. Of course, if you want to get the magazine, get in on it right there. Subscribe to BloodHorse Magazine. Just use the QR code there at the bottom. Make that coffee table look even better with those beautiful photos, including of journalism and Umberto Rispoli this month at BloodHorse. Go ahead, bloodhorse.com. Go check that out, or hit the QR code on the screen right now. I love those photos. I'm such a geek for a horse photo.
Oh, I know. It's awesome. They picked a great one this month.
It's beautiful. Yes. You hear a guy like Mike Smith too earlier in the episode talk about those horses and how they can change the course of your career, your life, etc. Imagine being an Umberto Rispoli. Your whole reputation is a turf and all this stuff, and then you get a journalism and a Mike McCarthy and a Wellman that the Eclipse folks all trust you with this horse in the biggest race on the planet, man. What a spectacular moment.
And on top of that, too, remember back a couple of years ago when he rode Rock Your World to win the Santa Anita Derby, and then they took him off for the Kentucky Derby. He didn't get a chance to ride him in the Kentucky Derby. For him to now, just a few years later, be able to bounce back, come back to the Derby with the favorite.
Right.
That's got to be huge for him. I can't wait for him to get here next week. He's one of the people I want to talk to the most next week, just to hear how he's feeling about, now having this chance with the favorite. I'm so happy for him.
Yeah, should be fun once everybody totally arrives at all of those things. Of course, after the Derby, we'll be talking Preakness and having to do those things. We had a couple of Preakness preps over the weekend, including the Tessio from Laurel Park. And we had Pay Billy, who has been the best on that circuit outside of Barbadian Runner, who is not in training right now, win that race. I don't think authoritatively, but another horse that I considered personally amongst the 2 or 3 best routing horses in Maryland runs second there. Pay Billy, do we have a potential deputed testimony? Of course, the last one to win the Derby, the Preakness out of the Tessio in 1983. I'm going to say no, and it's not a hateful thing. It's just I don't think he's fast enough to deal with this year's crop of 3-year-olds and how many didn't make the Derby that'll be going straight to the Preakness. That group is what, 6-7 this year?
Yeah, right now it's pretty deep. The horses that are probably going to be pointing that way, so that's good. We're having already kind of thinking about having a deep Preakness field. We also had the Bathhouse Row Stakes this weekend.
Instant Replay gets it done.
Instant Replay. I like the way he looked winning that race. I think he's going to be one of those horses that's going to develop into one of those those horses that are starting to pick up some of these stakes races throughout the summer, and then you kind of think towards the Travers, but maybe he's a little ahead of the curve here, heading towards the Preakness. So I think he's on the right track right now. We talked to Brad about him a couple weeks ago when we had Brad on the show, and I know he thought pretty highly of him, so I'm excited to see how he runs.
How Brendan Walsh talked about East Avenue in the Bluegrass not reverting back to what he did in the Risen Star. I thought the same thing about Instant Replay this weekend. He could have reverted to previous or just let horses go by, and he didn't do that. Right. He was willing to do the work in the stretch there at Oaklawn Park, and I think if you're in the Cox camp, you feel pretty good about that effort moving into a Preakness field that, again, is going to be long on quality, because I think many of those horses that would have tried, say, the Pat Day Mile or something, ended up running in the Lexington as a prep to go to Baltimore or ran in the Bathhouse Row or in the Tessio, etc. I think out of those 3 races, by the way, we'll have a half dozen runners in the Preakness.
Really?
Yeah,
I like your.
I think it's going to be that.
I hope you're right. And we'll always have to wait and see how many of the Derby horses come back. I know talking with Lonnie Briley a couple of times, it sounds like as long as Cold Battle comes out of the Derby healthy, they're already
Thank God for the old school guys.
I know.
Thank God for them, man.
He's already making Preakness and Belmont plans.
We know where Lucas is going to be. Let's just give me all the.
So and Caldera ran better than I thought he was going to in the Bathhouse Row as well.
I think he'll be the Preakness.
Yeah, I thought he was.
I
thought he had no shot halfway through the stretch, and then he dug in there and ran second. So that's another one. And American Promise, if he runs well and comes out healthy, he'll probably bounce back into Preakness. So.
I thought too. Blanket on who won the Lexington this year. It was the 6-horse under Irad because I bet him. But I just think there's several horses coming out of that one as well. I think this Preakness is going to be good quality, 9, 10, 11 horses, 5 from the Derby, half dozen from those other races.
And that's good that we're before the Derby. We're already looking at a solid Preakness field.
I agree. Yeah. Yep. No, I think it's hopefully set up as well with the winner heading there in that way. We will do a BloodHorse Monday next week. It will be a Derby week edition. We'll be at the studios of ESPN Louisville for that one. Callie Francois in tow. We'll have some guests and some other sound from Sean. Let's not pretend it's from Sean. It's okay. That's what Sean does. You can hear us all week on ESPN Louisville from 7 a.m. to noon, Monday through Thursday, 3 hours on Oaks Day, 2 hours on Derby. We'll have local on-track coverage through our station there at ESPN Louisville, ESPNLouisville.com. You can stream it anywhere in the world. Tuesday night, if you happen to be here in the city of Louisville, we'll be out at a restaurant called Blind Squirrel in the East End. We've got the upstairs rent it out. And so come on out for our annual Derby seminar. No cost to get in. That'll be also on all of the BloodHorse socials. If you are not here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky and want to follow along, we'll get going at 7 p.m. Eastern next week, Tuesday. We'll remind you of that on the next BloodHorse Monday as well. Derby week in a week, man.
Oh,
and frankly, the draw in 5 days.
I cannot believe it's already here.
5 days.
And we're gonna have the last couple of horses. I think we're missing 6 of the 20 right now. They're all going to be filtering in over the next few days. Journalism gets here tomorrow evening, so I'm excited to see him. The Baffert horses will get in on Thursday. Luxor Cafe, I think, should probably have landed in Chicago hopefully by now, so he'll be here soon. So it's getting exciting. It's already. You were with me on Saturday. You can start feeling that excitement start building already. Right. So
starting to get busy around the barns a little bit.
Yeah, it's starting, and it's a little earlier than it was last year too. So
how about that?
There's a lot of excitement this year.
You were surprised to see me on Saturday. I didn't appreciate that at all. Come on. I
wasn't expecting it.
Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Saturday works ahead of the Derby. I'm always there.
I know. I was impressed. You earned my respect this past weekend.
Well, I'll be out there again on Saturday. We'll make sure that we've got
Will
you.
you be holding my camera still?
Hey, how about you? Probably.
I appreciate the help.
That's no problem. Yeah, I'm an everyman. You understand?
Yep.
I'm an everyman. We get to the south end of Louisville, all bets are off. But no bets with our guy, Sean Collins. I'm Louie Rabaut. Thanks to Frank Angst. Thanks, of course, to Jockey Mike Smith for joining us on this week's rendition. Brad Cox, Brendan Walsh, Whit Beckman, Steve Asmussen. I missed one. Bill Mott. Yeah. All joined us on this episode as well. We appreciate them very much. Derby week next week. We'll see you next week here on BloodHorse Monday. He's Sean. I'm Louie. Have a great week, everybody.
The BloodHorse is dedicated to the improvement of thoroughbred breeding and racing for over 100 years. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and save BloodHorse Monday on all your platforms. For the latest news, analysis, and insights, visit us at bloodhorse.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.